Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to our panel discussion on ABC's 1982 album, The Lexicon of Love. Today, my special guests are Todd Evans, Armando Venditti, and Davy Gallagher, and we will be dissecting this groundbreaking Trevor Horn-produced album. ABC are an English pop band formed in Sheffield in 1980. Their classic lineup consisted of lead singer Martin Fry, guitarist and keyboardist Mark White, saxophonist Stephen Singleton, and drummer David Palmer. Developed from an earlier band, Vice Versa, ABC achieved 10 UK and 5 US top 40 hit singles between 1981 and 1990. Their 1982 debut album, The Lexicon of Love, was a UK number 1. Their early 80s success in the US saw them associated with the Second British Invasion. Now essentially a solo project for Fry, ABC continues to tour, and they released a 9th studio album, The Lexicon of Love 2, in 2016. But before we start, let's look at some upcoming and current programming on the channel. Ernesto and Ryan will be joining me for Get the Funk, where we discuss our 3 favorite funk tracks. This should be coming up next week, so look for that. Check out the first episode in This Is Power Pop, where the panel looks at the first Raspberries album from 1972. Next month, we look at the Plimsouls. In October, the band Fountains of Wayne. And on the Contrarians, Martin, Marco, Todd, and I look at the Doors. This is what I consider the Contrarians' quote-unquote extreme episode. This was just released, so head over to the Contrarians and check it out. Also, on August 12th at 7 p.m., we are having another Friday night chat. Remember, these happen every 2 weeks. We will be going live on YouTube and Facebook. Everyone is welcome. I will send out the link as we get closer. Please like, subscribe, and you know the thing. Let's get to the Lexicon of Love and to our illustrious panel. Gentlemen, how are we today?
Hey, Grant. Hey, everyone.
Doing good. Davy, you awake?
Of course I am.
All right. Just making sure you're all right. Armando, you're good? Huh?
Doing good. Yeah. Everything's great.
All right.
Warm day here. So
in Edmonton, everything's warm there?
Yeah, it's about 30 Celsius.
Right. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, you ready to talk some ABC?
Sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, it'll be just like we normally do. We'll just do a general discussion. Pick out some tracks we like, maybe some tracks we don't like. We'll do a rating 1 to 5 is usually what I like to do. But if you guys are so inclined to do 1 to 10, you can do that too. And I'm just going to go clockwise the way I see it. So I see Todd, Armando, and then Davy, and then we'll go to me. So Todd Evans, ABC, The Lexicon of Love. What's your thoughts on this record?
Okay. Well, I got this record relatively early. I heard, I heard The Look of Love right when it came out in the States. And so I went out and I bought the record because I knew I was going to like it. I loved that spoken word part in the middle, and I knew that between that and the way they dressed, that it was going to be something that was right in my wheelhouse. So I was blown away by it from the very first couple of minutes, and I remember vividly getting it. And I remember going on a vacation with my parents, and I don't know if anybody has had this experience, but when you go on vacation with your parents and you're like almost 20, you really don't want to go. So
I don't remember going on a vacation when I'm almost 20. Maybe when I was like 14, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad was one of those people who was like, "Hey, let's go visit this place and pretend that we're going to buy a condo and get a free weekend." And so I was on this free weekend with my parents, and I brought this album along with me, and that's pretty much all I did was listen to it. And I mean, this album, I mean, it starts out with Show Me, and it starts out with that Ann Dudley string arrangement, and then goes into this really aggressive drum part. And I mean, I think people, if they don't know anything about this band and they only know The Look of Love, and actually in the States, a lot of people they know The Look of Love and Poison Arrow, and that's it. It's hard for them to really know how aggressive this album really is. It was well, let me actually what I really want to do is I want to read from this is the remastered CD, and I want to read. There's a part that there's a little thing that Martin Fry wrote, and it's kind of long, so I'll try to cut it short a little bit. These are Martin Fry's notes at the time when this was released, which was, I don't know if it says here. I'm old, so I have to do this with my glasses. 98. So Martin says, when we first met Trevor Horn, we played him a couple of songs live and went for a pizza. The talk immediately turned to ABC and how we wanted to be the biggest band in the world, how we wanted to mix funk and soul with a broader contemporary edge. A rant, basically, our self-fulfilling prophecy, our manifesto, the one we kept repeating all the time to anybody who would listen. Trevor had a pained expression on his face, and I figured my zealous sales pitch was beginning to irritate him. He got up and walked to the till and requested that they turn off all the music in the restaurant. It went quiet. When he sat down, he explained that he hated music, and he despised it. And when he heard it, it made him nauseous, and it should be eradicated from the face of the earth. We knew right there and then we had to work with him. And I mean, think about that for a minute, that, Trevor Horn was relatively well known. I mean, at this point, when they were making this record, he had already been in Yes and left Yes, and had already had the experience of, trying to replace somebody who was really hard to replace. And even though the critical reception to Trevor Horn's performance in Yes was really not as bad as I think Trevor Horn thought it was, he was, people knew him from that. And I'm sure Martin Fry knew that Trevor Horn was in Yes. And so it was great that he had this immediate feeling that he definitely wanted to work with him. He says, we were bent on making a record that would fuse two very different worlds. We love Chic and we love The Clash. We were through with Matt and into Gloss. And it's every hand's birthright to be, I think that's a typo, to be self-obsessed and us against the world as they can possibly be. We were no different. Then he goes on to say, Sarm East, where they made the record, is a basement underneath a wig shop in Brick Lane. There wasn't much to distract us there. Karen Clayton, the receptionist at Sarm, did the I care enough to know I can never love you part on Poison Arrow first take as she was heading out the door, which I thought was great. David Bowie suggested that we leave endless answering machine messages during the middle part of The Look of Love, but we were too starstruck to do it. Then he goes on to say, you really can't ask for more than what we experienced. The Lexicon of Love was a beautiful experience. So that's everything I've heard. I've read a couple articles about the making of this album, and it was very much Trevor Horn was really excited to do it, and the band was too. And they were definitely in this perpetual feeling of, hey, let's try this. Hey, let's try this. And that's how they ended up with the strings and the elaborate arrangements. But it's, the album starts out with Show Me, which is really aggressive, pretty much a rock song. Goes into Poison Arrow. And I just read this today when I was doing a little bit of research that Tears Are Not Enough actually existed as a single. And at the time, one of the things that Trevor Horn said to the band when they asked him if he wanted to produce them is he said, "You've already got a thing. What can I actually add to this band?" And that's when he told them, we want to be slick. We want to be more polished. And looking back on it, Mark White has recently said that Tears Are Not Enough is a song that he skips because he feels like they shouldn't have put it on the album. They had a really hard time trying to make it fit. And when you listen to the album, even though it's a great song, it does sort of feel like maybe it doesn't fit. I personally think that Valentine's Day is one of the highlights of the album, and that the arrangement just knocked my socks off when I first heard it. And very aggressive, very energetic and dramatic. And then The Look of Love is legendary. So many great things about the arrangement and the spoken word part. All of My Heart was not supposed to have strings, and Trevor Horn insisted, and so they ended up putting him on there. Forever Together is really, along with Valentine's Day, I think those are the two best tracks for me. That part in Forever Together where where it's the vocals are processed to sound lower, and it says "see no evil," and then there's the part the synth comes in. The synth is so loud. I mean, it was so. I mean, that was a very keyboardy time, 1982, but still, the synth is. I mean, it's almost proggy. It's almost, it's not like a pop album. It's very lush and almost dark sounding. But yeah, this album, I think that ABC is a more important band than a lot of people think they are and how they're perceived. And I think that album is one of the most important albums of the 80s and possibly the most important. And what they did afterwards, which we'll talk about at another time, was really remarkable, how they tried to reinvent themselves over and over. But this, to come out of the gate with something like this and to have the kind of help like Trevor Horn and Ann Dudley, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. And both of them at the beginnings of their professional careers. I mean, it's only 2 years. It's really only 3 years after the Buggles album came out. And Ann Dudley was really in demand. I mean, just a year or two later, she'd be, doing work for Elton John and all kinds of people. So yeah, I think the Lexicon of Love is an extremely important album, and one of the most polished and sophisticated albums I've ever heard. And to think that such young people with so little experience made it. And I don't know if you've ever seen. I just watched a couple of days ago a very poor quality video of Vice Versa, the band that ABC came from, and it's really just herky-jerky synth music. And when they asked Martin Fry to join, he was like, "I don't know how to play an instrument," and they said, "Well, it's just a synthesizer. Just poke at it." And in the video, that's all he's really doing. But they totally sell it, and it's in black and white. It is just Martin Fry, Mark White, and Steve Singleton. And Steve Singleton and Martin Fry are playing the keyboards, and Mark White is singing. And really strange band. Apparently, when they started ABC, they thought that maybe they could do both projects simultaneously, and then they figured out that ABC was going to take too much of their time. But yeah, those are my thoughts. This is a 5 out of 5. I didn't even have to think about it.
Yeah, I hear you. Armando, what do you think? And thank you, Todd. That was a great review, by the way.
Well, how can I top that?
Well,
you can.
No,
Armando, come on, you're a damn professional. Let's hear it.
Bloody hell, thank you. No, I agree with everything Todd said. I mean, for a debut album, they knocked it out of the park. I remember when it came out as a kid, hearing Poison Arrow and The Look of Love was always my favorite. And then later on, hearing Tears That Aren't Enough and All of My Heart. Just the album in itself, for me, I call it symphonic pop. It has lush arrangements, beautiful strings, just basically their wall of sound, like Phil Spector kind of a thing, in terms of the way they stack the textures of each track on each song. It's just a very beautiful put together album, and it flows fantastic. From Show Me to the Poison Arrow, all the way through to Valentine's Day. Again, The Look of Love was always my favorite track. It's just because of the dance quality of it. Date Stamp is actually one of my favorite tracks. All of My Heart is a fantastic piece of music. It's a beautiful ballad. If there was a weak track out of the stack of 10, I would say Forever Together. For some reason, for me, sorry, Todd.
That's okay.
I don't have an opinion here, so
it's all good.
Breathe, Todd.
I thought that was more subtle than it was.
Well, when someone just, oh my goodness, no, it's got to be said. I mean, at the time, to come out of the gate using Trevor Horn as your producer. You know, I mean, he had been in the Buggles, he had and had a hit with, you know, Video Killed the Radio Star, and then going and being in Yes, and you know, leaving Yes, and then just and Davy and I were talking about it yesterday. There was not any dead space on this album in terms of the musical arrangements. Every corner on every track is full, and it's not even full. It's not like you can never call it noise. You know, I'm almost lost for words here. I've listened to the album quite a few times, and just hearing it again this week, I actually fell in love with it even more. It's a beautiful piece of music, you know, all the way through, as my dog barks in the background. And the only thing I could say is, you know, had they stuck on The Look of Love Part 4 at the beginning, you know, of Part 1, just to make it just a bit longer, I mean, that would have been perfect right then and there. That would have been a complete track. And yeah, all I can say for me as a rating, 9.5 out of 10.
There you go.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in the US and in Canada and the US, they could never really duplicate the success of the Lexicon of Love. You know, they tried with Beauty Stab and How to Be a Zillionaire and, you know, all the, you know, the other albums like Abracadabra and stuff like that, but they never were able to duplicate it. And that's a shame, because Martin's voice, again, David and I were talking about this yesterday, his voice has got such richness to it. You know, he can hit you seductively with a ballad. He can hit you really right in the chest with a good dance number, and he's got good range and such control in his approach vocally. So, but yeah, that's my review of it. It's just a fantastic piece of work.
Excellent. Thanks, Armando. I appreciate that. Davy, we're on to you, my friend.
Thank you. So it's an interesting one, Lexicon of Love. I mean, first of all, I think that's one of the most iconic album covers.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover. Yeah.
I mean, I will be honest, I can do without some of the text here, but just as an image, it's by, what's his name?
Gerald
Mankiewicz. Mankiewicz, that's it. Yeah. Who took the iconic picture of the Rolling Stones in the alley from Out of Our Heads. He took the black and white picture of Jimi Hendrix kind of smiling and blowing smoke.
Between the Buttons, I think.
I think he did that. So, great photographer. Obviously, this is about 15 years afterwards, but still has a wonderful, wonderful eye for a striking image. I mean, that is just absolutely wonderful. It makes Martin look like James Bond or something, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say it looks like a James Bond cover, right?
And on the inner, you get to kind of round off the theatricality of the piece. You get them taking a curtain call, which I really like, to kind of round it off. Because to me, and you know, complete with red curtains, this is almost like not a concept album, but almost like a theatrical production. Complete with the big string section coming in. And it is telling one big love story almost, and one big romantic story, not in a new romantic term, or even a classical romantic term, but one big kind of love story from all different directions. And it's kind of interesting to think that it's really two debuts. It's ABC's debut, but it's also Trevor Horn's real debut with a band that aren't Yes, in terms of, right, I'm going to try and make these guys something, because he didn't have anything beforehand. He had produced...
he had that one record. I can't remember the name of that band.
He produced John Howard. He produced Lips, a couple of singles. And the same year, he would produce Dollar, the Dollar album, which... and then he would, would go on to much bigger success after this. But to me, this is one of his absolute masterpieces. This is as Trevor Horn can be. It's the perfect era for Trevor Horn, because like Armando says, we're talking about yesterday, and it's not just that he has an idea to fill in any gaps in the music. It's that every gap is filled with something completely different to the gap previous. So it may be a little brass section, it may be a little blast of horns, maybe a little bass line, but it's completely different to what you've just heard 10 seconds earlier. Sometimes, and you do hear it from musicians, they say that Trevor Horn is more interested in the studio than he is in the band themselves. You never hear that from Martin Fry. Martin Fry and Trevor Horn have remained friends over the years. When ABC did when Trevor Horn did his first ever live show for the Prince Charles benefit concert, and he had all the acts come in that he produced over the years, Martin Fry was at pains to say how they could never have made this album without Trevor, not even close. It would have just been nothing without Trevor Horn's kind of lush ideas. They would have probably just faded away with great ideas but no execution. And likewise, I think Trevor needed an act like ABC to be able to take his talent forward as well. I don't think that he could have just taken on another pop prog band like Yes We're Becoming at the time, and move forwards, because this is what pushes him way into the mainstream. You know, this is not drama, and it's certainly not 90215. The album itself, it's interesting you were mentioning the charts there. It was a number one record in the UK, but it didn't even do the top 20 in America. So it's quite interesting that it's from that era where even an album that didn't hit the top 20 could still have, you know, quite a bit of fame and notoriety. I think it was it 2022 or something? Let me check.
That sounds about right, but I'm not.
It did go gold eventually. It's one of the 24, so it never got higher than 24 in America, which sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
Well, they did
for a debut album. I mean, that for an unknown band, I think that's pretty good. I mean,
Well, it's not as good as a number one. That's my point.
I mean, Zillionaire sold more in the States than Lexicon ever did.
Supposedly their most successful single in the States was "Be Near Me" from Zillionaire, but nobody remembers Zillionaire. They remember this.
Yeah, and on the in terms of peak position, When Smokey Sings would be one of their biggest hits, even though that album wouldn't be anywhere near as popular. But that's more an effect of, I think, the album didn't make a massive impact straight away in terms of going platinum in the US or anything, but it consistently sold. It's one of those that just consistently sold, drip.
it's like a slow burner.
Yeah, and also it's that period where if you sold enough records to get to 24 in 1982, that would probably be a number one record these days.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can't even compare that now.
Yeah, there's no comparison.
I don't know. I don't know if we can even say that, because does anybody really know how downloads and things count in terms of the charts? I mean, it's such a smoke and mirrors.
It's such a convoluted situation now.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody really knows, to be honest. It's just all kind of fixed to get certain artists to certain points in the charts. But the album itself, as mentioned, spawns 4 massive singles, and Poison Arrow, Look of Love, All in My Heart, and Tears Are Not Enough. They all were top 10 hits in the UK. And they're all just pop masterpieces and nothing alike. So they're all great love songs, but nothing alike, from the same album, from the same team, from the same producer. But you would know that. I mean, that note that Martin comes in with on Tears Are Not Enough, I mean, wow, that high note. It's like, oh, I'm always scared when he hits that note that he's somehow not going to hit it, even though it's a recording. You know, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
And how many hooks are there in Poison Arrow and Look of Love? It's just insane. It's just hook central. You know, there's absolutely everything you can possibly want to kind of, well, literally hook you, you know, with the way he's singing it with the "When your world is full of strange arrangements," which I think is almost a clever pun because there are so many strange arrangements on the record.
Yeah.
Um, and then when it flips to the "All I'm saying, it takes a lot to love you, all I'm saying, you know it's true." Like every single verse, it kind of jumps, and then you've got when your girl has left you out on the pavement, goodbye. You know, all these little things just adds up into like a wall of sound, like Armando was saying. But I don't think it's a Spectre wall of sound, because Spectre's thing was put everything on top of each other, whereas I think Trevor takes something out and then puts something else in to really highlight it, which is a little bit different. Poison Arrow, I think, is again such a perfect pop song with that ridiculously silly on paper chorus with the whole "bow to the target, blame Cupid, Cupid. You think you're smart, stupid, stupid." I mean, that should not
He's
work.
going to sing the
But
entire
it
album.
does. It works.
It
Totally
just,
works.
it should absolutely not work. But
Yeah,
you're just
but it
so
does.
wrapped up in the grooves and the soul that, I mean, personally, although this is lumped in with the new romantic stuff, I think you can almost put it alongside the Blue Eyed Soul that was coming out just about the same time as well, with the Style Council and
That's exactly what I was thinking.
yeah, you know, much more those kind of acts. But you can also, I think, hear vocally, Martin's much more of a crooner than just a pop singer. And these songs you can hear being done by different arrangements, sure, but you can hear being done in a much more traditional crooner style. And I think that even a track, one of my favourite tracks from actually is "Many Happy Returns," which is quite a different track. You know, he's almost doing that kind of talking intro, and that almost sounds like Morrissey could do it. You know, such a strange, you know, that whole when I accepted this job, I was resigned to my fate. When I got there early, she'd arrive late. Like you can hear kind of Morrissey doing
Sure.
a kind of drone on that. You know, it's bizarre.
When you mention Morrissey, now you're going off now in a whole other area kind of a thing, and that's a whole other topic. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Well, I was an 80s musician, so it's a pretty similar story, I'd say. But in fact, I think the Smith's debut was the next year, was it not? Must have
I
been.
believe so.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's too dissimilar at all.
What, the first Morrissey record?
But
I mean, the
Smith,
Smiths are
Oh, the first Smiths record. Yeah.
yeah, I'd say that was 83. So yeah.
The Smiths releases in the UK are so different from the ones in the US that
Oh yeah,
it gets confusing for us.
yeah. Was. But again, that's the kind of those kind of crooners as frontmen were taking over at this period, rather than just being rock singers or kind of bland pop singers. These guys with great voices were taking over. In any other era, they would have been soul singers, really.
Yeah.
Tony Hadley.
Tony Hadley's
Yeah.
another good example. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Spandau Ballet.
What's his name from the Blow Monkeys?
Oh yeah.
So many great singers that were pigeonholed in a way and into this kind of new romantic genre, and that kind of, I think that deflates them a little bit and doesn't give, you know, because people hear new romantic and think it's almost a bad term these days. I think they don't really explore the musicality of it. It's new romantic in the classical sense, in the way that Byron is a romantic poet. You know, it's not really saying it's just singing about love songs all the time. I mean, All of My Heart, that sounds, when he's doing the vocal on that, sounds totally different to the kind of vocals he's doing elsewhere in the record. That even sounds like David Bowie could do the intro bit there. Once upon a time when we were friends, I gave you my heart, the story ends. I can hear David Bowie doing that in my head.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, but none of it feels derivative. That's the weird thing. Like, it sounds perfectly of its time. It sounds perfectly produced, perfectly 1982, but it doesn't sound dated. And I think that's a criticism of Trevor Horn that you used to hear a lot more. And I think maybe it's that whole, I guess we now call it the Stranger Things effect, where all that's old is new again, and the 80s revival and whatnot, and synths came back round and whatnot. Trevor Horn's productions now sound a lot better, or they always sounded fine to me, but in reviews maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was all Trevor Horn production from the 80s, very dated. Whereas now they're being reappraised as being these great pop masterpieces that they always were anyway. You know, going on to right here, I think you can hear what he would go on to do in Frankie Goes to Hollywood in a couple of years' time.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say that's a good point, Davy, because Date Stamp sounds like Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Yes.
That's when I made mine. I went, oh my God, there's Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Yeah.
But I think this record has dated much better than the Frankie Goes to Hollywood record. Because there's less gimmick, you know, the gimmicks and stuff as far as what year was Frankie?
84.
84. You're getting more into the 80s and there's more, you know, production gimmickry and stuff.
You've got such iconic singles there as well. I mean, I think Frankie were the first band, again, this is UK centric, but I think they were the first band ever to have 3 #1 singles as their debuts. You know, with 2 Tribes, Relax, and The Power of Love. Just boom, boom, boom. #1 records. And
I think it was very brave of them, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, to have Welcome to the Pleasure Dome as the main track on side 1, for God's sake, because it was a sidelong track.
But you know, the fact that they
didn't really have that, right?
The fact that they were so massive, but again, I think you can see here that Frankie were big because of Trevor Horn more than anything else.
Yeah,
because it's Trevor.
Well, I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
I'd say more than a lot. You can hear pretty much the whole production in here somewhere, even in embryonic phases. Well, I think you can also hear Grace Jones' "Slave to the Rhythm" that Trevor would do a couple of years later.
Yeah, and Frankie and this album are actually a little bit closer than anybody thinks, I think, because he couldn't he was slated to do the follow-up to this, Trevor Horn, and he couldn't do it because he had started with Frankie Goes to Hollywood really soon after he finished this. It just took it a long time. So he was pretty much those 2 albums, even though they're 2 years apart, the sessions are actually a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Wow, wonder what Beauty Stab would have sounded like if Trevor had a crack at it.
A lot better.
Well, Gary Langan was on Trevor Horn's team as an engineer, so that was kind of what they just thought. Well, maybe we can. I mean, that's a topic for another show, but
basically,
we'll get to that next time.
Yeah,
basically, everybody on this record from the production side would be the Art of Noise with Trevor.
Yeah,
just about everybody would form the Art of Noise with them. And how influential were they in multiple types of electronic music and dance music in the UK, and therefore wider spectrums and clubs across the world, and pretty much launched Ibiza culture and things like that, which resonates to this day. So it really is a perfect marriage of almost a holy trinity of producer, of band, and time and place. Everything was a perfect storm to make an absolute pop masterpiece. I think it's a perfect 10 records. Honestly, I think that there are no tracks on this that I would skip. There might be slightly lesser tracks, but there's not a single song on here that I go, oh, hurry up! I want to hear the hit. Every track.
No, you don't hear that here at all.
The
whole record. Yep.
And it is kind of, because of the success of it, is kind of their bat at hell in a way. What's the live album called? The Lexicon of Live. What did they do in 2016? Lexicon 2.
Which also, I'm surprised that they didn't work with Trevor Horn in 2016, because I have part 2, and it sounds to me like Trevor Horn was at the controls in terms of the production.
I mean, Trevor would have been back with Yes about that point doing Return Trip. I'm not sure what it was.
Because you mentioned Frankie Goes to Hollywood in terms of the popularity. I prefer ABC to Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I'm sorry.
I don't think that's competition, to be honest. I think that they're two totally different acts.
No, I'm just saying in terms of vocal styles and stuff, I prefer Martin Fry's voice over.
But Holly Johnson's another example of somebody who's quite a crooner, really, when you look at just his vocal abilities. Trevor would go on to produce Mark Almond, and they would produce Seal. He had a massive part in Seal's career. He pretty much produced all of Seal's records. So he's always been attracted to the voice, that soulful voice that he can utilize.
Very much so.
I've never understood it as a criticism that Trevor uses the band the studio as an instrument. You think that's exactly why you would hire Trevor Horn. Then, if you just want somebody to hit record, then don't hire Trevor Horn.
Yeah. Hire Eddie Kramer instead.
Yeah. Because to me, it's a perfect marriage of absolutely everything going on here. There's nothing on here from album cover to production to the single choices that isn't absolutely perfect. There's no, but if they'd have done this, that could have been more successful. Maybe in the marketing point of view, if you say that it could have had a couple more hits in the US, perhaps. But again, for a debut record, I think perhaps they may have had more of a legacy in the next few records if certain marketing choices had been made. But I don't know the intricacies of the US distribution, but. Again, they did have it's bizarre to call Smokey Sings a comeback, isn't it? When it's only 5 years later, because these days bands do go 5 years without releasing anything and nobody blinks an eye. But then
I just think that ABC, after this album, they suffer from, in my opinion, just inconsistent albums, like in terms of the quality of music on them. I mean, when Smokey Sings was a big hit here. The rest of the album, Vanity Kills, was it on that album, or The Night You Murdered Love, or they weren't as big. They didn't hit the mark as well as when Smokey Sings. So I mean, it's just that's
a high benchmark though. When Smokey Sings is one of those perfectly, a natural hit. That just everything about it.
No, I definitely agree.
You also have the ability to say that you've just literally copied a Smokey Robinson melody and called it a tribute song. So if you're copying somebody, mate, copy Smoke.
The thing is, how can you go wrong if you've copied it, right?
That's what I'm saying. So it's a bit of a misnomer there, really. But actually, I think the next couple of records are fantastic from ABC.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any issue with them. Are they as iconic as Lexicon? No, but I think that's just a result of the hit singles, really.
Beauty Stab. I mean, the two singles that were released here, SOS, and that was then. This is now. I like those two tracks. The rest of the album, to me, isn't that memorable. Be Near Me from How to Be a Zillionaire is a good track.
Oh, that's a great track.
Yeah, and Alphabet City was actually their next massive hit in the UK.
They played like, Be Near Me, Vanity Kills, How to Be a Millionaire, got a lot of play here.
But oddly, Lexicon 2 was a massive hit here. That got right up to 5.
Yeah, that's a great record.
Oh, that's good to know. It didn't make a blip here.
Yeah, right up to 5.
It didn't do much here at all.
Some kind of gimmick where packaged with the first one or anything like that. Number 5 in the UK charts.
Armando and Todd, have you heard that?
Yeah, I have that.
Okay, I bought it on vinyl when it came out.
Yeah, I've got the Lexicon of Love too. I like it. I mean, but it's to me, I'm surprised again that Trevor Horn didn't produce it. I thought maybe he did, and I checked the credits. No, he didn't.
It sounds like it would have been nice to see Trevor's name on there, but what are you gonna do?
But
I think he was back with Yes at that point. I'm pretty sure that's when he was doing the Redux fly.
Yeah. I think so. I think that's right.
But yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with this record in my view whatsoever. It's one of the cornerstones of 1980s just pop perfection.
And Grant, I wanted to say something else. I hope you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
I think that this is going to sound very fanboy of me, but I'm not just saying this. I really believe
Well,
that.
when have you not sounded fanboy before?
I think Martin Fry, he's probably my favorite frontman of all time. I think he's one of the very best frontmen. And the way that he delivers lines, he can be very romantic and very much like a crooner, but he can be very intense at the same time. Like we were talking about, you think it's smart, stupid, stupid. What later on in that song, when he says, you think you're smart, that's stupid.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's a whole different thing. When I first heard that, I was like, who is this guy? And where did he come from? Because he's really, really good.
His vocal approach has different dynamics, different levels.
Yeah. And I used to.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that I used to say, and I don't say this as much now, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I used to say that that Martin Fry was the fake Brian Ferry, and that I liked Martin Fry better than Brian Ferry. But I've started to really get into Roxy Music lately, so I don't say that anymore because it sounds like I'm disrespecting Brian Ferry, and I don't mean to say that. But I just feel like, look at this. Look at this photo. I mean, just look at that. To come out of the gate with an image like that. I mean, I saw photos like this and thought, oh, this is for me.
Todd, you would have thought that this would have been like on a much later record after they were well more established.
But look at
more hits, and they pumped even more money into them.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. We're coming out of the gate just
And look at this. Look at this logo. Instant brand. I mean, talk about branding. I mean, you pick this up in a store and you've never seen it before, and the first thing you think of, oh, this is something I should know about. I mean,
well, I mean, Davy and I were talking about last night about comparing Martin Fry to Simon Le Bon of Duran Duran.
Mm-hmm.
To me, as much as I like Duran Duran, and by the way, if anyone wants to check out Duran Duran, check out Arcadia, So Red the Rose.
Great record.
To do with Duran Duran.
Duran Duran album without the Duran Duran name.
Exactly. There was no comparison between Martin Fry and Simon Le Bon. Martin Fry has such control on his range and his delivery with his vocal ability that he puts Simon Le Bon to shame.
Yeah, that's what I was saying to you last night.
He does.
Simon Le Bon, when they're both singing their higher parts, there is a vocal similarity, but Simon Le Bon is hitting the highest notes that he can hit, and can't replicate it live very well.
No,
it's not Live Aid. It can't do it in demand. He is much more limited.
No way in hell.
Whereas on record, you can control that. Even on some records like the Bond theme, "View to a Kill," Simon Le Bon is kind of it's a bit out of key.
He's straining to control it at the very end.
You never find that with Martin.
He's got it. Yeah, Simon Le Bon. I love Simon Le Bon, and I love his voice, but he has an issue with pitch, and I think that he would tell you that. I think he understands that.
There's a richness to Martin Fry's voice that there isn't there with Le Bon at all. And again, it's no disrespect to Le Bon, but at the same time, it's like, to me, you can't compare the two. There's no comparison.
No, I mean, I think there is a vocal comparison when they're both going high, and that's definitely there. And they were in the charts at the same time, so it's natural. So they were competing for the same audiences. Yeah. But to me, you can imagine Martin on stage doing some kind of Frank Sinatra act and absolutely nailing it. Whereas
he
Simon would never have done that, absolutely not. Or he would have had to have completely changed the arrangements or something.
I would say that Martin Fry is a perfect combination of Brian Ferry and David Bowie. If you took both of those guys, meshed them. But he's a little bit more. It's more Avalon than I would say. Let's Dance. If we're going to make that comparison, it's more Brian Ferry than David Bowie. But there's a lot of David Bowie in there.
It's
Well,
the packaging too, the way they're packaged, the way they're presented, the suave, sophisticated presentation.
Yeah, there is a bit of that. It is a bit dated now, unfortunately. That kind of London Soho, cocaine chic.
I
Yeah.
don't know, but I like that gold suit, so let's not dog the gold suit.
Well,
No.
and,
You know what?
it worked for Elvis, but
It
You
still
know what?
works.
Ain't nothing wrong with a good gold lame suit. And if you
well,
can wear it and you can work it,
see, I think that
Go for
actually
it.
is a bit of a problem for ABC because it did kind of, oh, that's the guy with the gold suit, and it turned into a bit of a novelty.
Do you think that?
well, apparently
gonna
the gold suit was stolen, by the way.
Yeah, it's
I'm
still
going
wears.
to throw this out here because you know how ABC they were kind of like were chameleons throughout their career. They do an album like this, and then Beauty Stab's a lot more harder rock. You've got Zillionaire, which is more synth pop. Do you think they stereotype themselves with Lexicon of Love, and people weren't so adapt to accepting anything after that?
Well, I just saw, and I didn't think there was anything. I didn't think anybody talked to Mark White after he left ABC, but I found an article that's an interview with he and Stephen Singleton from just a couple of years ago, and he basically said, "Where do you go after Lexicon of Love?" I mean,
I guess you go to Beauty Stab.
yeah, I mean, we just wanted to try to figure out where we were supposed to go. I mean, they have an album that's just all straight up house music, every single track.
Yeah.
So they've done a whole lot of things. And that's how ABC, along with Todd Rundgren, is one of the bands that I learned how to adjust expectations, and I learned how to bend and adapt to be like, okay, let's approach each album with an open mind, because they challenge you, and I love every ABC album, but it was a hard road, and some bands I can't do that with. I had a real hard time with U2. I had a real hard time with U2 when they wanted to redefine themselves, but for some reason with this band, they always got the benefit of the doubt.
how can I put this? With band, if a band starts out that with every album they do, or like not every album, like if they do different styles of music on albums that they release, you're kind of used to the fact that they're going to be doing different styles of music. If a band like U2 up until like Achtung Baby does basically the same type of music and then comes out with an album like Pop, okay, that's going to be culture shock. I mean, you're going to hear that and you're going to be like, what the hell is this? This is not what.
Well,
I think if you go
We've
from
already done about 5 styles by Achtung Baby, to be honest.
yeah,
I think once you hit Octoon Baby, that's where the shock hit you.
and I think the difference.
Zooropa's not that much different, and Pop's really, it's just like a progression. But
I think the
Baby
difference
came
is
out
that
from right field.
I really didn't hear that with Octung Baby, because I thought, okay, they're working with Lenoir, they're working with Eno, and I believe Steve Lillywhite's on that production too for Octung.
Yeah, but
He's been with them the whole time.
But I mean, I just thought, okay, they're entering kind of like their Bowie period, and that from the Berlin trilogy, like the Berlin years with Bowie. I mean, he did stuff like that on Low and Heroes. So I mean, it's not, to me, it's not such a culture shock from.
I don't know, Armando, to compare like what they were doing on War to then Rattle and Hum and stuff.
Okay, but you're talking how many years ahead, though?
That's not that far ahead.
No, that's 2 albums, Armando.
But I think we're dealing with a different situation.
From War to where?
Rattle and Hum.
Well, you said, okay, Rattle and Hum. That's like War was 83, Rattle and Hum was 87.
Yeah, but you were saying that they had one sound right up until Achtung Baby?
No. What I was trying to say was, when I heard Achtung Baby, after, I didn't even consider Rattle and Hum, because to me that wasn't even a full studio album. I didn't really Desire and all that. Forget that. I didn't really go into that. But from Joshua Tree to Achtung Baby, to me personally, it wasn't that much of a change for me. But to go from say, Octane Baby and then up to Pop. Because, I mean, in between, you had Zooropa and then you had the Passenger soundtrack where they were experimenting. That was a complete shift from 91 up to 97. That was a complete shift.
Yeah, I know. See, I'd say that Boy and War are as different from Joshua Tree as those are to Acton Baby, to be honest.
I think my takeaway from it is that I really should that giving you two such a hard time for shifting direction is something that I never should have done. But I think the reason that it happened is because this is popular, but U2 was. I mean, I think I didn't go see the Joshua Tree tour because I literally couldn't get tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, they were so massive. So I think that might be part of the difference to where it was easier for people to accept this band going in all different directions because a lot of people didn't care.
For a reason, Grant had already checked out of U2 by then because they didn't like the direction they were going. So that's how different they were. They lost Grant by then. By 1984.
Well, I'm back though.
Yeah, it took you long enough.
Yeah, but
well, all it does is take one of these shows to bring you back in.
I mean, getting back to ABC, they were Martin Fry did an interview and he said, after we did Lexicon of Love, people were expecting us to do Lexicon of Love part 2 right away, and we wanted to do something different. And he says, well, in retrospect, we should have continued. We shouldn't have made such a departure from what we did because
commercially he's right.
They got stereotyped. People thought that's what ABC sounded like.
I've heard Stephen Singleton say. I've heard Stephen Singleton say there's an alternate universe where we just made another album like Lexicon of Love, and the album is called More of the Same. And he says, I can tell you that would never have happened.
But I think now again we like those following albums, you and I, Todd, so we're probably playing devil's advocate more than anything here. But again, to go back to U2 essentially made those first 3 records in a very similar sound with Steve Lillywhite, didn't they? Boy, October, and War.
They were just
so it kind of cemented here's what U2 is. Whereas by the time some people knew what Lexicon was, the new album's out and it's completely different, which is a risk worth taking artistically. Commercially, I think it's proven to be false.
You know what? There's a great transition into that. There's actually Martin Fry says that when or was it Martin? I think it was Mark White says that after Beauty Stab came out, Bono sent him a note, and Bono said, "This is a great album, but people are going to hate it. Just be ready for that."
Yeah, because Bono knows about audience feedback.
And Mark White was like, "Wow, that was really nice thing for him to do."
But here's a question.
Well, when you listen to that record, you kind of have to be open.
Yeah.
And we're going to hit that.
Why aren't bands allowed to diversify? Why are bands not allowed to do whatever the hell they want?
Because they have to sell copies to justify their existence.
Right.
Or they get dropped. I mean,
at this point, yes. In the 80s, that's how you had to do it.
I mean, the next album did absolutely nothing on either side of the Atlantic, really. Unfortunately.
See, I thought you mean Beauty Stab. I thought maybe Beauty Stab was more popular in the UK.
More, but it's certainly not a hit.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't do anything here.
Let's have a look. Beauty Stab got to, I think it was in the 20s, even in the UK. Let me just double check. 12, so it didn't get top 10, which again, you're following up a number 1 record, and it doesn't get.
It got to 69 in the States.
Yeah.
So here's another question. Why do you think groups like Duran Duran were more popular worldwide as opposed to a group like ABC? Because to me, I would take this album over Rio any day.
Yeah, but Duran Duran were really a hit with the teenage girls. They were marketed toward the Tiger Beat crowd. Even though I don't think that was a fair thing to do.
Yeah.
But they were marketed as teeny boppers. So
boy band marketing rather than.
And it's amazing after all these years that they were able to shed that and carry on as artists, because for them to be pigeonholed as that, I got them. I remember seeing them on the Seven and the Rage Tiger tour, and there was just plenty of young girls out there in the audience. But I knew there was way more to Duran Duran than that.
Yeah.
But it's just a shame that they were
Future
marketed that
Past.
way.
I have the new album of Duran Duran, Future Past. I like it. It hasn't done what it, it's considered a failure here, but I mean, I like it. So it could just goes, like I said before, what's good usually it doesn't mean if it's good, it doesn't mean it's going to sell.
Well,
So-
the thing is, Duran Duran, look at them now. They're never going to have a big hit.
Yeah,
They're a
think-
legacy
no,
band at this point. They're no
The trajectory of their career is that they kept shifting around too.
right.
They kept changing their sound at pretty much every time.
Nile Rodgers produced them.
Yeah.
I mean, then they had that massive. I don't know if it was a massive comeback in America, but certainly in '93 with the self-titled.
with the self-titled,
It was.
the self-titled,
massive comeback, and kind of gave them a much more street cred. Unfortunately, they followed that up with that covers record, which kind of turned them into a joke again. But
Ernesto, where have you been?
They have Duran Duran have a habit of not being able to maintain what level, if they've rediscovered success, they have a hard time maintaining it.
It's been a long time since they've lived off record sales, though. They're still a massive selling live act.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's as relevant as it used to be. How well an album sells, I don't even think. I think an album is just a piece of the puzzle. Yeah. As far as promoting a band, it's just one small piece where it used to be everything.
Beast. Now the music business is a very different beast than back in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, but I think that goes for any act. Though, what act in their 60s is still expecting to sell like they did in their heyday if they were famous 40 years ago? I don't think anybody really.
Well, you'd be surprised how many are still expecting to sell, and
who.
Saga for one of them.
Well, they were never. They were never a massive.
No, Saga was never a massive band here, other than what was the one album? And
hold on, they were a massive band in Germany. They had some success with their fourth album, Worlds Apart, in the U.S., but then they just sort of petered out, and they never they've never reclaimed that success. They wanted to, but they haven't been able to. So I mean, they're.
Obviously they all want to sell, but I don't think any of them realistically expect to sell like they did at their heyday.
The only band that I can think of off the top of my head that went away and came back was Aerosmith, and they came back bigger. And I'm not saying those records are better, but they sold a crap ton of records after their initial.
Yeah.
And that's a good example of is it really Aerosmith anymore when it's basically Diane Warren's hit factory, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So no use for whatsoever.
What made me laugh though was Steven Tyler said in an interview, he says, I have to be able to write songs, to sing. I have to be able to feel what I'm singing. What am I going to do? Call Diane Warren? I'm not Celine Dion. Like, I'm not going to, and what's he doing? After that, Diane Warren gives him a song and they have a massive hit with, I don't want to, what was it? I don't want to close my eyes, whatever the hell that was.
On the soundtrack of.
So
it is a good song. I'll give it that.
But I mean, ABC, when you look at it, have got a very small discography for such an ongoing band. Because for such a long time, they have just been packaged as an 80s nostalgia act, unfortunately. And they haven't really, Lexicon literally was toured live. They did it with an orchestra, then they toured it without an orchestra. They did Lexicon 2. I mean, that's as good as Lexicon 2 actually is. It's better than it's any right to be. I don't think that's what Martin would artistically like to say that he's done with his career, gone back to the start, all those years later. But
I saw ABC in 2006.
Holy crap! I
didn't. And in Atlanta, and they had a big band, and David Palmer was playing with them at the time on that particular tour. And like a 8 or 9 piece band with a with a horn section and with the little music stands in the front that said ABC, and like sort of set up sort of like a big band, and it was just absolutely outstanding. Mark White wasn't in it, but they have another guy who's been the same guy in ABC like for 20 years now, and it was really, really good.
Yeah.
What type of venue was that in, Todd?
Center Stage Theater in Atlanta, so 800-900 seats, something like that.
Oh God, I bet that was wonderful.
It was.
Todd's seen everybody.
I was very
swear
lucky to
God,
see that. I was
he
very
kills
lucky
me.
to see that
Mhm.
because ABC doesn't play here pretty much ever.
No.
You will see them quite, maybe not the past few years because he toured the hell out of the Lexicon 2 stuff, but unfortunately they do get packaged with the likes of Dollar, as I mentioned, and Kajagoogoo and Chesney Hawks.
Well,
these.
I mean,
These
that's
Kajagoogoo.
fine. I'd rather, if they're packaged that way, I'm fine with that because I kind of like that to some degree.
What it means, though, is you're going to get Martin coming out with the gold suit and only playing the hits, though.
Well, I'll take that. If that's what I have to have, I'll take it.
You're never going to get
As long as
I
he's
have
got the gold suit, for God's sakes.
But he doesn't anymore. It was stolen. But anyway, back to the discography of ABC, all the different kind of ways that all the different directions that they've gone. I can only think of one album that I don't really think is very good, and that's Skyscraping. And even it's not that bad. But I mean, Traffic was a good album. I mean, they've had a couple of albums in there that got like absolutely no attention that were actually good.
Well, hopefully we'll get to that point in 6 months from now that we'll look at that.
Yeah.
Skyscraping was such a weird one because it had what's his name from Heaven 17.
Yeah, which wasn't a good match, I don't think.
Yeah, not in 1997. So you're in the middle of Britpop.
Yeah.
And you've got a meld of ABC and Heaven 17. I mean, it's like, no. I mean, some bands just about managed it. OMD had a great comeback in
They did.
With Walking on the Milky Way was a hit single for that was just out of the blue. They had a hit single again.
For which group? Sorry,
OMD.
OMD. Okay, yeah.
And then the Human League even had a big comeback with "Tell Me When Will I See
from
You
Octopus.
Again?"
Yeah.
Which was what 95. So there
That's
were
about
some
right,
bands. Some
See,
bands.
even that album I liked, like from Human League, but they called it the next Tears for Fears album because they thought, okay, you had Ian Stanley producing them from Tears for Fears, and they said, Human League said they never found a producer that understood where they were coming from.
Well, Phil's a bit of a weirdo, to be honest. I'm not sure anybody understands where he comes from, but another Sheffield band who came out just around the same time, really. So I'm sure they knew each other from the scenes because they were both Sheffield acts.
And there you go, another band, Tears for Fears. When they were releasing albums, but I mean, when Kurt Smith left, Roland Orzabal, going as a solo, continuing the name, like after the Seeds of Love, he never really replicated the
Tipping Point may actually do it for me.
The Tipping Point is a fantastic album.
It's fantastic.
I love it.
Todd
Tipping Point.
picked it for the Contrarians, didn't you, Todd?
It was honorable mention for me, but didn't you pick it?
No, I thought you did. So I think we both had it as an honorable, and then
we both had it as a just almost made it. Yeah,
I had Elvis Costello. That's right.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were a group that, just very quickly, they were a group that, with Roland Orzabal as doing it on his own, they never duplicated the success of Seeds of Love. And at this point, they'd like to with Tipping Point, but I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately.
I think Tipping Point has gotten as close as you can get now in the current climate.
It's getting well over here.
I think it's the 2022 equivalent of what used to happen when you had a hit record.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I do think it's a strong album. I do like it a lot.
It's even got a Blu-ray audio mixed by Stephen Wilson.
Does it? I didn't know.
Really?
That. Wow.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. Okay.
I didn't know that either.
Which and you
all
can get
kinds of stuff.
the audios these days.
All right. Cool. Well, I don't really have much more to add. You guys have seemed to be all over this record. I would, just to finish up, I don't have anything more to add. I give it a 5-star. I give it a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10. This is a great record. One of the best albums of the second British invasion.
Yeah.
This is up there with Duran Duran, Rio, Culture Club, Color by Numbers. I could go on.
Yeah, your classical MD ones. And
It is right up there. I would not have any issue recommending this to anyone. Yeah. But next month, since I just can't help but do one record. So next month, we're going to look at Beauty Stab. And we're going to try to go through the catalog, maybe do one record a month. I like to do these. I just can't just do one record, kids. So we're going to look at Beauty Stab next month.
I think that's an interesting notion, because especially with Armando saying that he's not as enamored.
Maybe it'll grow on me.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
This is the thing.
Because
we know. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Davy.
If anybody knows about revisiting the catalogue and finding how it can grow on you, it's you, Grant, after the U2 series, where you.
This is one of the reasons, Davy, that I want to keep going, and let's look at this together as a group. We may, like Armando, you may look at Beauty Stab now, and you might look at it in a different light. I know our colleague Todd loves Beauty Stab.
Yeah, I think it's a masterpiece too, in a totally different way.
Yeah. And I've been the last week or so, I've been trying to rebuild my ABC CD collection.
See, Todd's getting all ready.
So
look at him! Holy shit!
I'm ready to go.
I'm working on that too.
Man.
Get a vinyl band for me. I don't own any CDs by ABC.
Well, you know what? That's what. For me, that's the beauty of YouTube. I can just call it up on YouTube and listen to the album. And
or you can do
that.
You
can. Or you can be like Todd, you buy them, and look at you, Todd.
With everything,
you're an inspiration.
Well, that's just a matter of me going, I never should have given up those CDs. I need to have them back, basically.
But this is what I'm hoping with the next shows that we do. We look at these records, reevaluate. And you may look at Beauty, even though Todd and Davey think they're masterpieces. I honestly haven't listened to Beauty Stab in years.
And I'm prepared to say that I might think, was I overestimating it? So I might go the other way too. So it'll be interesting to see, because it's been a few years for me.
So that's what we'll do. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and Ernesto, our only person who made comments tonight.
Hi, Ernesto.
We can always count on Ernesto.
Yeah, God bless you. God bless
and
you.
And Ernesto is going to be on the funk episode that's coming up here next week. So
he's
going to make his debut on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Well, with you and Ryan to keep him company, we'll be fine.
Well, we will. Ryan and I'll be holding hands and welcoming Ernesto to the group. There you go. Look at that. You got it, Ernesto. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, blah, blah, blah. You know the whole deal. So gentlemen, just stay on so we can book the date for Beauty Stab while we're on here real quick.
Yep.
And look for that next month. Excellent chat. I love this. I love it when we're diving into these second British invasion type of records. I just love this whole era. And the thing is that no one is looking at this stuff. And the fact that we can come together and discuss it.
Yeah.
Warms
but you know
my
what's
heart.
even more annoying?
It warms my heart.
If these tracks were in season 5 of Stranger Things, they would be back in the charts next month.
Star's here. Hey, Star. Right. But honking on Bobo, big old thumbs down. Well, we looked at honking on Bobo on that Aerosmith series, and it wasn't up there high in the rankings. I'll give you that.
Hey, look, I like Just Push Play.
Just Push Play.
They really needed to focus group the title of Honkin' on Bobo. I mean,
yeah,
I never say that about anything because I think that whole concept is inherently evil. But yeah, they should have had a group of people.
I said
from
that to Graham the other day about Meatloaf. Meatloaf had the album "Hang On, Teddy Bear." You just think, no.
I gotta tell you something. The only cover album that I have listened to that I really like, and you guys may be probably not in your wheelhouse, but it's K.D. Lang song, Hymns from the 49th Parallel.
Oh yeah, that's a lovely album.
That is, she does covers from like Neil Young, from Jane Sibley. It's a fantastic album. Like really, you should really check it out. But
I've never heard it,
again,
but I bet Peter Jones, I bet his ears are burning right now.
it's one of the few albums that brought tears to my eyes when I listened to it.
Well, we can do a
right.
surprisingly good covers album show at one point. I'm sure that may be quite a fun exercise.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll mark that down. Covers album extras. We should do that on your channel, Davy.
Oh, if I have more than one person on a panic and just set the house on fire.
Oh, well, we can do it over here. But that's a great. That's a great. That's a great. Well, it won't. My house. Yeah. Well, that's a great idea, though.
Yeah. Well,
all right, gentlemen. I'm gonna turn this dog off. Like I said, thanks everybody for showing up. Everybody for making comments. Ernesto Star. If you're never, you got to have Star on here. So anyway, gentlemen, stay on, and then we'll pick a date. All right. Night, everybody.
Night.